Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Jnanatimarandhasya Jnanajana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuddha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganath Raghunath Anvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Prijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Today we'll be reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 18, verses 16 through 26. 18, 16 through 26. We can read the Sanskrit and translations together. Text 16. Tatraivam satikartaram atmanam kevalam tuya pashyat yakrita buddhitvan nasa pashyanti durmati. Translation. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the five factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. Text 17. Yasya nahan krito bhavo buddhir yasya na lipyate hatvapi sa imalokan nahanti na nibadyate. Translation. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, is not the slayer, nor is he bound by his actions. Text 18. Jnanam jnanyam parijñata trividha karma chodana karanam karma karteti trividha karma sangraha. Translation. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the three factors which motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer comprise the threefold basis of action. Text 19. Jnanam karma chakarta cha tridaiva guna betadha prochate guna sankyane yatavach trinutanyapi. Translation. In accordance with the three modes of material nature, there are three kinds Avyayam ikshate avabhaktam vidbhakteshu tajjanam vidhisatvikam. Translation. That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all existences, undivided in the divided, is knowledge in the mode of goodness. Text 21. Pritatvena tu yajnanam nana bhavam pritagvidhan veti sarveshu bhuteshu tagyanam vidhirajasam. Translation: that knowledge by which a different type of living entity is seen to be dwelling in different bodies is knowledge in the mode of passion. Text 22. Yatu kritnavad ekasmin karye saktam ahaitukam atat vartavad alpam cha tattamasam udavritam. Translation: in that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all-in-all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. Text 23. Niyatam sangarahitam aragadveshatakritam apala prepsuna karma yatat satvikam uchyate. Translation: performed without attachment, without love or hate, by one who has renounced fruitive results, is called action in the mode of goodness. Text 24. Yatu kame suna karma sahankarena vapuna priyate bahulayasam harvajasam udahritam. Translation: but action performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify his desires, and which is enacted from a sense of false ego, is called action in the mode of passion. Text 25. Anubandham kshayam himsam anapeksha chaparusam mohad arabhyate karma yattat tamasam uchyate. Translation: and that action performed in ignorance and delusion without consideration of future bondage or consequences, which inflicts injury and is impractical, is said to be action in the mode of ignorance. Text 26. Mukta sango naham vadi dritya kasa samandvita sidya sidyor nivukara karta sadvika uchyate. Translation: the worker who is free from all material attachments and false ego, who is enthusiastic and resolute, and who is indifferent to success or failure, is a worker in the mode of goodness. Now we can go back to text 16, and I'll read translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. Purport. A foolish person cannot understand that the Supersoul is sitting as a friend within and conducting his actions. Although the material causes are the place, the worker, the endeavor, and the senses, the final cause is the Supreme, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, one should see not only the 4 material causes, but the supreme efficient cause as well. One who does not see the Supreme thinks himself to be the instrument. And we could maybe look, the 5 factors of action are the place of action, the performer, the senses, the endeavor, and ultimately the Supersoul. And we can look at one of the plates, if you'd like. It's like the 4th to last plate, somewhere around there. It's plate 41 in this book, and it says, the place of action, the performer, the senses, the endeavor, and ultimately the Supersoul. These are the 5 factors of action. So you've got the place, the performer, the senses, the endeavor, and ultimately the Supersoul. Supersoul is what a lot of people might miss, might not know about that, and they would they'd really benefit from knowing about the super soul residing within the heart of every living entity.
So,
Hare Krishna?
maybe we could, that's nice, I'm glad you brought this plate up. Why don't we look at that plate and see if we can tell which part is referring to which of those 5 actions?
Okay. So we have 5 smaller plates on the bottom, and in the middle is the super soul. We're looking at the ear. I see an ear and an eye. I believe that would be the senses. And then we have the place of action on the left, the performer, the endeavor, so what are they doing there? They're working on some cloth.
Looks like they're selling somebody's buying and someone's selling some cloth, looks like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful painting. So those are the 5 factors of action. Okay, back to 1816. Quickly, just to glorify the Bhagavad Gita a little bit, in the beginning of the Treta Yuga, this science of the relationship with the Supreme was delivered by Vivaswan to Manu. Manu, being the father of mankind, gave it to his son, Maharaj Ishvaku, the king of this earth planet and forefather of the Raghu dynasty in which Lord Ramachandra appeared. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita existed in the human society from the time of Maharaj Ishvaku. And of course, there's a verse like,
Prabhu, I believe we lost audio.
so the commanding officer is actually the one that's responsible in that situation. Going on to text, Krishna insists that Arjuna fight in the proper consciousness as an act of surrender. Krishna assures Arjuna that such fighting will bring no reactions. And then verse 18, knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the three factors which motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer comprise the threefold basis of action. Prabhupada writes, there are three kinds of impetus for daily work: knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower. The instruments of work, the work itself, and the worker are called the constituents of work. Any work done by any human being has these elements. Before one acts, there is some impetus, which is called inspiration. Any solution arrived at before work is actualized is a subtle form of work. Any solution arrived at before work is actualized is a subtle form of work. Then work takes the form of action. First, one has to undergo the psychological processes of thinking, feeling, and willing, and that is called impetus. Actually, the faith to perform acts is called knowledge. The inspiration to work is the same if it comes from the scripture or from the instruction of the spiritual master. When the inspiration is there and the worker is there, then actual activity takes place by the help of the senses. The mind is the center of all senses, and the object is work itself. These are the different phases of work as described in Bhagavad Gita. The sum total of all activities is called accumulation of work. And summary of, so text 13 through 17, he's speaking on jnana. He's summarizing jnana a little bit. Krishna cites Vedanta and analyzes activities as comprised of 5 factors. The most prominent is the supersoul. One who acts under direction of supersoul is unaffected by reactions to his actions. Even the motivators of action and the constituents of action are under the dictates of the modes of nature. He first speaks of knowledge, a motivator, action, a constituent, and the performer of action, a constituent. In text 19 through 22 are based on one's knowledge. This is text 19. In accordance with the 3 modes of material nature, there are 3 kinds of knowledge: action and performers of action. Listen as I describe them. Purport. In the 14th chapter, the 3 divisions of the modes of material nature were elaborately described. In that chapter, it was said that the mode of goodness is illuminating, the mode of passion materialistic, and the mode of ignorance conducive to laziness and indolence. All the modes of material nature are binding. They are not sources of liberation. Even in the mode of goodness, one is conditioned. In the 17th chapter, the different types of worship by different types of men in different modes of material nature were described. In this verse, the Lord wishes to speak about the different types of knowledge, workers, and work itself according to the 3 material modes. So, in 1819 through 1840, Krishna describes the effects of the 3 modes of nature. One's work, according to the 5 factors above, is dictated by the 3 modes of material nature. This includes one's knowledge, one's actions, one's performance of action, one's understandings, one's determination, and one's happiness. Going on to 20. That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all existences, undivided in the divided, is knowledge in the mode of goodness. Purport. A person who sees one spirit soul in every living being, whether a demigod, human being, animal, bird, beast, aquatic, or plant, possesses knowledge in the mode of goodness. In all living entities, one spirit soul is there, although they have different bodies in terms of their previous work. As described in the 7th chapter, the manifestation of the living force in every body is due to the superior nature of the Supreme Lord. Thus, to see that one superior nature, that living force in every body, is to see in the mode of goodness. That living energy is imperishable, although the bodies are perishable. The difference is perceived in terms of the body because there are many forms of material existence in conditional life. Therefore, they appear to be divided. Such impersonal knowledge finally leads to self-realization. So Krishna says to transcend sinful reactions by, 1, becoming renounced from the fruits of activities. Becoming completely renounced from the fruits of activities. And I was thinking about how like a hoard, people hoard sometimes, and you'll see these houses where they have so much stuff and they're overwhelmed, but then they still want to hold on to this or that trinket, and they're kind of holding on to these fruits. They say, oh, I got this here, I got this there, this means this to me. And they're not really renounced from the fruits of activities. Also transcend sinful reactions by 2, abiding by the order of supersoul. Number 3, worshiping the Lord with the fruit of one's work by acting according to one's specific mode of nature. Thus one can achieve the self-realized position of Brahma Bhuta, and from there, detached from all material things, one can practice pure devotional service. Going on to 23 through 26, focus on one's actions.
Prabhu.
23. As for actions, that action in accordance with duty, which is performed without attachment, without love or hate, by one who has renounced fruitive results, is called action in the mode of goodness. Purport. Regulated occupational duties, as prescribed in the scriptures in terms of the different orders and divisions of society, performed without attachment or proprietary rights, and therefore without any love or hatred, and performed in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the Supreme, without self-satisfaction or self-gratification, are called actions in the mode of goodness. Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. 3. So one's work according to the 5 factors is dictated by the 3 modes of material nature. This includes one's actions. And going to 26, translation, the worker who is free from all material attachments and false ego, who is enthusiastic and resolute, and who is indifferent to success or failure, is a worker in the mode of goodness. Purport. A person in Krishna consciousness is always transcendental to the material modes of nature. He has no expectations for the result of the work entrusted to him because he is above false ego and pride. Still, he is always enthusiastic till the completion of such work. He does not worry about the distress undertaken. He is always enthusiastic. He does not care for success or failure. He is equal both in distress or happiness. Such a worker is situated in the mode of goodness. Srila Prabhupada again equates spiritual consciousness and the mode of goodness a little bit in his purport. So, tyaga is renunciation of activities performed within material consciousness, and vairagya, detachment. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn vairagya. Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind and spirit. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to the activities of Krishna. This is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called Parashanubhuti, spiritual satisfaction. And impersonal spiritual detachment and impersonal liberation and these things, it's really the absence of pain. You don't really get any pleasure. This merging into the void and this impersonal spiritual detachment, it's like kind of like going to sleep. You know, you might escape some pain for a little bit, but it's not really true happiness. Unattached to results. And I feel like we're kind of like in the forest of, I had this thought, last night, the forest of life. We're all kind of in this forest. Some people are learning to renounce the results of activities, and some people are becoming attached to results and bound. And some are watering the creeper of bhakti, and this creeper can continue to grow and grow and grow until it breaks through and goes straight into the spiritual world. And Krishna is teaching us every step of the way. Some people in the forest are obsessed with animal life, and some people are trying to transcend animal life. Renouncing the results means maybe sometimes not even going out of your way to see the results. It's like, well, I acted. Now let me leave this act. I don't even need to see the results or see the results of my activities. That's renouncing. I can't help the analogies that come in my head, but Kansas City did win the game, the big Super Bowl game, and of course we want to have the Super Hardy Bowl, but but imagine them. How would they renounce? Just an analogy of renouncing. Imagine Patrick Mahomes became Krishna conscious, and a few weeks ago, and he wanted to learn how to renounce whether I win or whether I lose. I'm going to renounce it. I'm not going to be affected one way or the other. And by the way, he should meet Maharaj Dhanavir Goswami. I think that would be an excellent. He would really, Mahomes would really benefit from that, and so I think that is kind of exciting to think about. But if you won the Super Bowl, you were Krishna conscious or something, you would say, well, I didn't really do it. It was the team. The team really helped me, and God was just guiding me every step of the way. And I just like acting. I just like playing, and Krishna wants me to play, and so I just kind of did what Krishna asked me to do in my attempt to dovetail this thing, and so yes, I won, but what changes? Not so much. Yes, some things will change, but I don't really need to look into those. But I just enjoy playing and fighting, like Arjuna, just fighting, and whether he wins or loses, he was guaranteed to win. But whether he wins or lose, Arjuna just fight. And if you lost the Super Bowl, you could say, well, same thing. I really just enjoy playing. I wanted everyone to have a good time. That would be great. And I was just doing the things that Krishna asked me to do, and this is how it turned out. And I'm sure that he's testing me or putting me through this for a reason, because nothing we're doing is not. If Krishna didn't want it to happen, it would not happen. And if Krishna wants someone to die, no one can save him. And if he wants to save someone, no one can kill him. And you also, speaking of sports, you see these people they walk around with their jerseys, and they have these sports people on their back, and it just seems kind of silly. I call it Mayavadi make-believe. And it's like they're pretending they're a superhero or something. They act so adult, but in some ways they can be so childish inside. And people should embrace their eternal soul and not try to be something else. There's no one out there with the skill set and the qualities that you have. And so embrace your spirit soul. And just a quick some words from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu crying out, missing Krishna. My dear friend, where is Krishna? Kindly let me see him. My heart breaks at not seeing his face even for a moment. Kindly show him to me immediately, otherwise I cannot live. My dear friend, where is that beautiful helmet with a peacock feather upon it like a rainbow upon a new cloud? Where are those yellow garments shining like lightning? And where is that pearl necklace resembling a flock of herons flying in the sky? The blackish body of Krishna triumphs over the new blackish rain cloud. Krishna is the reservoir of art and culture, and he is the panacea that saves my life. Oh, my dear friend, since I live without him, who is the best among my friends, I condemn the duration of my life. I think that providence has cheated me in many ways. Yet why should I be angry with Krishna? It is the fault of my own misfortune. The fruit of my sinful activities has ripened, and therefore Krishna, who has always been dependent on my love, is now indifferent. This means that my misfortune is very strong. Power of chanting, as enunciated by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Chaito Darpana Marjanam. By chanting the holy name of the Lord, one is cleansed of the material conception of life, which is due to the dirty modes of material nature. When the dirt is cleansed from the core of one's heart, one can realize the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchid Ananda Vigraha, Brahma Samhita 5.1. Thus, by hearing the holy name of the Lord, one comes to the platform of understanding the personal form of the Lord. After realizing the Lord's form, one can realize the transcendental qualities of the Lord, and when one can understand his transcendental qualities, one can understand the Lord's associates. In this way, a devotee advances further and further toward complete understanding of the Lord as he awakens in realization of the Lord's holy name, transcendental form and qualities, his paraphernalia, and everything pertaining to him. Therefore, the chronological process is Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.23. This same process of chronological understanding holds true in chanting and remembering. When the chanting of the holy name, form, qualities, and paraphernalia is heard from the mouth of a pure devotee, his hearing and chanting are very pleasing. Was there any comments or thoughts today? Yes. Yes, Dr. Fred, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances, and thanks for the nice class, full of nectar. So I was wondering, I think it's in text 18. The mind is the center of all senses and the object of work itself. We talk about the hands, the feet, the nose, the tongue, the eyes, but we don't talk about the brain. And I was wondering, from my understanding, the brain isn't the mind or the intelligence, but is that where the mind and intelligence is housed?
In the brain?
Yeah, is
according to my understanding, yes.
Okay.
The mind is the center of all senses, and the object is work itself. Yeah. It's the sense gatherer. The mind is gathering the senses, compiling all these senses, compiling all this information, and then the intelligence is above the mind, trying to sort it out and saying, no, don't do this, don't do. So the mind is said to be the sense acquirer, acquiring the information, the sense information, and then the intelligence is when you can make either a good decision or a bad decision. Like when someone is working with a dog and the dog sees a squirrel, it's like, don't say squirrel around some dogs. And the dog sees a squirrel, and so an untrained dog might just rip away from the leash and just go. It doesn't have the intelligence, but you can actually teach the dog to use its intelligence, and by repetition and training and positive reinforcement, you can train the dog actually to withhold some of those urges, things like that. Rishi, Prabhu? No more volume.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
I was just going to mention that I've read before, I think in the Srimad Bhagavatam, a couple times, that the mind is situated in the heart. Like we're cleansing the mirror of the mind, cleansing the heart. But we'll have to Veda base it.
Did anyone else have? Yeah. Krishna Shravanam? Prabhu?
In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's mentioned in the pastime of Daksha. During this great sacrifice, Daksha was beheaded, and his head was replaced with the head of a goat, but still his intelligence is as it was before. So this is proof that the intelligence is not situated in the brain, but rather in the heart. So this is contrary to what the material scientists believe today. But we accept a version of Srimad Bhagavatam and not the material scientists.
Jai. That makes sense because with super soul in the heart and Atma in the heart and Paramatma, that makes sense because super soul is guiding. So it makes sense that the intelligence is right there. And someone, yes, Jai Keshava Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, just a comment on that. Yeah, it said the mind, intelligence, and false ego are the subtle parts of material energy. They're material. We can think like when we go from one body to the next, we're carrying those things with us too. So, yeah, that's just further proof that it's not the brain, the head in itself is not the resting place for those things.
And so that's another reason why it's so important to purify those things, because if we're going to be taking these things with us, we want to make them as pure as possible to give ourselves an advantage going forward, in the next life, and to not fall down. So that's wonderful. Oh, yes.
I have a question too,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Okay.
So we're talking about giving up the results of our actions. That's in the mode of goodness. So how do we think about, this might be a perennial question, but how do we think about giving up the results of our actions in Krishna consciousness? What's your thoughts on that? Thank you.
I think we still, we know that it's a team. We know we're surrounded by a wonderful team and of amazing individuals. And this is the type of school, or it's kind of like a hospital sometimes, where we check in as patients. And if everything goes really good, it's a hospital. It's a type of hospital where you check in as a patient and you actually become a doctor, hopefully, in the hospital. So you check in as a sick patient, and then you leave as a doctor. So that would be very nice. But it's because of all the association, the association of the devotees showing us the proper processes and they've got so much experience. And sometimes, I close my eyes during a kirtan, and I just feel like there's a lot of healing. Like I'm around all these healers that are and we're kind of healing each other. And so people are doing amazing things in Krishna consciousness. They're accomplishing wild, amazing things. And then they give all the credit to Krishna and to the people around them. And it's really beautiful. It's a really humble thing. And it's what's missing in society is putting God in the center, and when people put themselves in the center and then they struggle and they wonder why, and they keep struggling and they keep going back to the same things. And so, but yeah, we give all credit to Krishna and it's amazing, super soul guiding. And I was thinking also that, about rewards. Sometimes, we act, and I'm also amazed at, people's ability to act with no reward. And, a child a lot of times will want, a parent might give some reward to get a certain behavior out of the child, but as we get older, and adults, I think, are better at acting out of like responsibility and duty. As we get more mature, we realize that let's not just do it for some reward. Let's enjoy the activity itself, but children do have some legs up on us too in some ways, because I get to work a little bit with adults and children in a one-on-one teaching capacity. And I find that adults get a little more, and it's good for some reason, but they'll question things. They'll talk so much about their issues, whereas a child is kind of there along for the ride, and they're enjoying the process, and they don't have a lot of experience, so they can't really like question and pick things apart the way we do sometimes as adults. And the adults are questioning themselves. They're questioning the teacher, and they're bringing their own books and baggage and all this stuff. And if we can get out of our own, if we can get out of our own way, that's so much a part of it. Another small point was just how obvious we have to be and clear to the public about explaining our philosophies and things, because I've noticed sometimes when you think something is extremely obvious, the public may not get it. The example for me is sometimes like playing live, you do like a quote, you try to quote something. So last night, I know it's cheesy, but last night I was trying to quote some of these themes, some of these, football themes, just to get a reaction out of the crowd or something. And I thought it was, sometimes these quotes seem so obvious to me. I'm putting them in there, and I did it multiple times. It's just a go. No one was hearing it. And then I asked the drummer afterwards, I said, "Did you hear my quotes?" He said, "No, what?" Didn't hear him. And so people, it's just when you think it's obvious, you have to make it even more obvious sometimes. And, if he would have maybe done something, we could, if him and I were both on the same team and he knew what I was about to do, I think we could make it even more obvious. But I just think it's so funny how they're distracted, they're in their own mind, and they just don't hear music, or they don't have it in their mind when I have it in my mind and my intention is there. And to me, it seems so obvious. But for them, just nothing. And I was just kind of surprised, and maybe someone has a reflection on that, or a comment on anything, or a question on that. Hare Krishna, Mathuranath Prabhu.
Yeah, just a small comment on Jai Keshava's question. We can use our intelligence in these instances. Usually, that means to accept things that are favorable for devotional service and reject things that are not favorable. So, a lot of our results are favorable in devotional service. We're doing things for God, so to reject things that we're doing as prashadam, or mercy that's been offered to the Lord, is not very intelligent, because Shastra says that we should accept those things that are favorable. So, to reject things that we have offered, or, to the Lord, it's usually not so favorable. Although, you can do, but sometimes it's like, why? Why reject it if it assists my spiritual advancement? Why? And assists the spiritual advancement of those around me, why reject it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about this recently too. Or something, but Krishna also wants us to take the amount of prasadam, that we that we need and that we want, you know. So I think sometimes Krishna is also okay with us. You know, it'd be great if we could donate prasad or do something, have a compost pile or something. But Krishna is okay also with you not taking more prasad than you need. You know, so sometimes you're going to be in a situation where you have a little more prasad than you really need, and he's okay, you know, with you listening to your body and using your intelligence and not taking all the, maybe saving it or you know, if you have to, you can discard it. I know he's okay with that. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Hare Krishna? No. All right. Yes, Radhastali Mataji.
Hare Krishna. I just had a comment. I wanted to see if I'm understanding this properly. It's related to Jaikeshava's question also in our conversation. So I was thinking about it in this way where we know when we're doing something for Krishna because it's in our heart. We know when we're doing something for ourselves also. In the same way that, like, you know, when we're full of prasadam, you know, when we had enough, we don't need a degree or we don't have to go to school or read something to know that, oh yeah, I'm full, I'm satisfied. I think in the same way, like, we have this same inner knowing of, oh, I'm doing this for Krishna, or making that decision would be for Krishna, not for myself. It's kind of hard to, I don't know, for me sometimes it's hard to fully know all the time, but for the most part I know for sure when I want some gain or like result from something for myself, and it's hard to accept it, but sometimes it is that way. Like, oh, I'm going to offer this because I want it. You know, I'm going to offer this food because I want it, but I'm going to give it to Krishna because he says that we should only take things that are offered to him first. These are just some thoughts I had from your discussion. Hare Krishna.
That's wonderful. Yeah, if we feel like we're doing something that's not really purely for Krishna, we should change that. We should either cease the activity, or if it can be dovetailed, and that will come through more and more chanting and intention. And yeah, this has been so wonderful. Thank you all so much. Bhagavad Gita as it is. Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.